What do you say when there are no words to say what you want to say? When that's the case, sometimes it may sound ridiculous. Native Americans, when they saw a horse for the very first time, after the Spanish brought them to the New World, had to invent a word to describe what they were seeing. The only thing they could come up with was a word that meant big dog. And still in the Lakota Indian language, their word for horse translates big dog. I hope I can do better than that. On the other hand, in Greek culture, they had 6 base words and 40 variations of those base words for the one word that we use for love. Well, I don't have that much time to be specific today because my talk is supposed to be short. So I'm supposed to find words to adequately express the collective love, gratitude, and appreciation to you, the families of donation heroes, on behalf of recipient families like mine. Hello, my name is Tim Lewis, and in 2012, my oldest son Tyson was the recipient of a donated heart. It came to him after a 14-year battle that began with bone cancer that ultimately cost him his leg, most of his hearing, and 12 years later, due to the aggressive chemotherapy treatment needed to save his life, it cost him his heart. And after 2 years of drug therapy treatments and a left ventricle heart pump, his gift arrived just in the nick of time. That treasured gift that we received from our donation hero that day gave my son and our family 3 gifts kind of wrapped up into one very special gift. First, it gave him the gift of life. It saved him. It kept him with us. We watched surgeons and doctors and nurses take a healthy human organ from one person and make it continue on and beat and beat and beat in another. It was truly a miracle. And as each year passes, we find out that our bodies are even more interchangeable than we knew. And we, you and I, and your loved ones, have been a part of that medical progress that will benefit generations to come. Life. That gift gave him life. The gift he received that day also gave him the gift of time. For a while there, we allowed ourselves to believe that our son's life story would come to an end. A story that was not yet complete with all the things that life had to offer a young man. My son received more time to write more chapters of his life story. Chapters on the love of family and friends and a special someone. Chapters on travel and adventure, books and imagination, chapters on faith, and a very important chapter on using this extra time to leave a legacy. Something of value left behind for others to use after you're gone. While waiting for his heart transplant, my son took me by the arm and looked me in the eye one day and he said, "Dad, this sucks. There needs to be more people on the organ donor list. And when I get a heart, I'm going to do everything I can to get people to sign up. Will you help me?" And at that moment, I promised that I would help people know his story and his spirit and the fortune that he received that day. That would be his legacy. This is the third gift that our donor gave us that day, the gift of legacy. I'm reminded of a story about a legendary golfer named Arnold Palmer. I'm sure you've heard of him. Mr. Palmer went to Saudi Arabia to play a series of 5 exhibition matches. One of those matches he played with the Sultan. And at the end of that round of golf with the Sultan had such a very special experience. He said, "Mr. Palmer, I'm going to send you a golf club in the mail." Mr. Palmer said, "It's fine because I've received putters and drivers from people in the past, and I'm sure that'll be okay." Several weeks later in the mail, he received a document by special delivery from the Sultan. It was not a putter or a driver. It was the deed to a golf course, a golf club, a country club located in his home state of Pennsylvania. Mr. Palmer didn't know if we should keep that or not. It's a pretty extravagant gift, but he also learned that if he returned it, it would be an insult to the Sultan. So he took it, but he decided to redesign the golf course, to re-architecture it, to rebuild it, and to donate it back to the city in which it was located, to become a public golf course. And during that process, something was lit inside of him. He said, "I love this. I love being a part of the process of redesigning and overseeing the building of a golf course, to make it accessible for players of all levels." He said, "That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do for my legacy. That's what I want to leave behind." And so we figured that out. And in 2016, when Arnold Palmer passed away, he left behind over 300 golf courses in 37 states and 25 countries on 5 continents. The consulting fee that he charged for one golf course surpassed the total winnings that he earned as a professional golf course, $4 million. And when he died, he was worth $1.35 billion. You trace it all back to one gift, the golf club. That legacy gift. That's what millions of people will remember about Arnold Palmer. That's what he left behind. My donation hero allowed my son to write more chapters of his story, but I want to be very clear about one thing in this message to you today. Our donation hero from that moment on has also become part of my son's and my family's story. On the anniversary of my son's transplant, we raise a glass to our donation hero, and our prayers include the name of our donation hero and their family every time we sit down to count our blessings. You see, your loved ones are now helping to write the chapters in the lives of untold many, and their legacy lives. How do I find words to express the importance of that? One last thing. I want to find words to celebrate your courage. When life puts you in the worst possible circumstances, you found the strength to help others through your pain. You did one of two things. You honored the wishes of your loved one to be a donor, or you honored your loved one by giving consent for them to donate when they may not have had the chance to indicate that themselves. In either case, you stood up. You spoke up because you knew it would make an immediate difference in people's lives. You did the right thing, and courage counts. In 1901, President William McKinley was visiting the Pan American Exposition Fair in Buffalo, New York. After a long speech, an assassin came up to him in the greeting line and put 2 bullets in his abdomen. Since the fair had a huge expectation of large numbers of people, it was actually equipped with a surgical tent, a full-blown hospital that people could come and be treated, where they could do the surgery right there. Doctors removed very quickly the first bullet, but they could not find the second bullet. The surgeon probed and he probed and he probed it, and he came to the conclusion that the bullet must be lodged in one of the president's fat deposits. You see, he was obese and he had quite a few of those. So they closed him up, they sewed him up, and 9 days later, he died after his wound became gangrenous. As it turns out, right next door to the hospital was a new invention on display called an X-ray machine, fully functional. The doctors from the fair said nothing about it because they did not think it would make any difference. Doctors today now believe that President McKinley had an 80% chance of surviving if they would have found and removed the second bullet using that X-ray machine. The very thing that he needed was right next door, and no one had the courage to stand up, to speak up, and to do the right thing. Not you, heroes. So what else can I say to you today on behalf of Live On and of all the recipient families who I speak for today except thank you. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God's face shine upon you and give you peace.
On your hardest day, you found the strength to pick up the phone.
Or welcome us into the hospital room to talk about next steps.
You listened as we shared the news that your loved one could make a difference for others.
That your mom could help another woman who had battled breast cancer.
Your brother's heart could continue to beat in someone else.
Your son's corneas would help someone see for the first time in their life.
Amid your tears and grief, you chose to see the rainbow among the clouds.
On your hardest day, we heard the heartbreak in your voice. And we felt the love and overwhelming pride you had for your loved one.
She was already your hero, but now she's a hero to others she will never know.
On your hardest day, you allowed us to come alongside you to celebrate and honor his memory.
Together, we've shared stories, raised flags, and awarded our heroes with medals of honor.
We celebrated when we learned how she helped others and wiped away tears while reading a letter from a grateful recipient.
On your hardest day, your life changed forever. Being with you on this journey has changed ours too.
There are not enough words to adequately express the gratitude we feel for you and your family. We can simply say, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You and your hero changed the world.
Hello, my name is Brent Timperley. It's my great pleasure and honor to get to talk to you today at the virtual Celebration of Heroes event. God willing, we'll be able to do this event in person again in the very near future. Organ and tissue donation is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I work at the University of Nebraska Medical Center Trulson Eye Institute as an ophthalmologist specializing in corneal transplant surgery. I get the privilege of performing vision-restoring corneal transplant surgeries on a very regular basis. Worldwide, it's estimated that 4.2 million people are visually impaired or blind from corneal opacity. Fortunately, many of these cases are treatable with corneal transplantation. Corneal transplant is an outpatient procedure, typically taking an hour or less to perform. During this operation, a portion of the patient's cornea is removed and a similarly sized portion of a donor cornea is used to replace it. Depending on the type of cornea transplant that is performed, there's a recovery period, but typically vision can be restored, oftentimes even to 20/20 vision. For many people, loss of vision is one of their greatest fears, often a fear even greater than death itself. Visual impairment can mean loss of independence, loss of the ability to drive, loss of the ability to work and engage in hobbies, and loss of the ability to see friends and family. Visual impairment, both globally and in the United States, is a significant public health problem and in fact is one of the leading causes of disability worldwide. Fortunately, through tissue donation, we now have the ability to cure a large majority of these patients that would otherwise remain needlessly blind. There is nothing more gratifying in my professional career than to help someone see again that previously could not. I think nearly every eye surgeon would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. It's tremendously fulfilling. With that said, despite all the training, technical advances in eye care, none of this would be possible without organ and tissue donation. Without someone making the decision to donate their organs and tissue, every one of these patients would remain blind for the rest of their life. As grave an impact as organ and tissue donation has made on my professional life, it pales in comparison to the impact that it's made on my personal life. My son Joseph was born February 9th, 2008, and my wife and I could not have been happier. Unfortunately, shortly after birth, we learned that he was born with a serious liver condition called biliary atresia. This is a condition in which the biliary outflow system of the liver does not form correctly, leading to liver damage and eventually liver failure and death without treatment. Joseph underwent an operation called a KELSEY surgery at 8 weeks of age. This is a procedure that attaches a small loop of bile to the hilum of the liver to create an alternate drainage pathway for bile. This procedure was successful and allowed Joseph to live a relatively normal life, but it was tremendously challenging along the way. Joseph had a number of complications that required many hospital admissions, over 100 nights spent in the hospital, as well as more trips to the doctor and lab than any kid deserves. As a result of the condition, Joseph had an extremely enlarged spleen and low platelet levels that put him at significant risk in any case of trauma. As a result, he was never allowed to play sports with any risk of contact, jump on trampolines, or do many of the other things that young boys love to do. As a parent, it was hard always having to say no, even knowing that it was what was needed to keep him safe. Joseph continued to live a mostly normal life. However, doctors began seeing signs that his liver condition was worsening. Abnormal veins began enlarging in the esophagus, putting him at risk of having dangerous internal bleeding. His spleen was so large that he couldn't eat a normal amount of food, and he often had belly pain. The time had come where we needed to consider listing for a transplant. Joseph was listed for a transplant, and after only 3 months on the waiting list, we were called on December 19, 2019. Getting the call for a transplant for your child is an incredible mix of emotions. Joy that your child gets this great life-saving procedure, and sorrow that someone else has lost a loved one. Joseph underwent a liver transplant on December 20th, and after some bumps in the road with the recovery, I'm happy to say he's doing great. Joseph is expected to be able to live a normal life thanks to this incredible gift. He'll be able to do all the activities with his friends that he's always dreamed of, be able to eat a meal without paying, grow up, and strive to fulfill all of his dreams and goals. Myself, my wife, and my 3 other children will get to enjoy it with him every step of the way. This is all thanks to organ donation. Without someone making the selfless decision of being an organ donor, none of this would be possible. For that reason, I thank each and every organ donor and donor family from the bottom of my heart. The gift you've given mine and so many other families is so great it could never be quantified. In closing, I'd like to encourage everyone to discuss organ donation with friends and family. The more the message is spread and stories like this are told, the more people we can get to register to be an organ donor. Organ donation has the ability to add light to unspeakable tragedy and truly is a medical miracle. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak for such a wonderful cause and event, and hopefully we can do the same in person in the very near future.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the 2020 Celebration of Heroes. My name is Kyle Herber, and I'm the president and CEO of Live On Nebraska. Scott Adams, a celebrated cartoonist, once said, "Remember, there's no such thing as a small act of kindness. Every act creates a ripple with no logical end." I don't have to look far to find examples of these ripples. Among our Live On Nebraska team, you will find dozens of stories of those whose lives were forever changed because of donation and transplantation. There are proud donor family members who, like you, have experienced loss and peace of knowing their loved ones live on. There are recipients who have healed as a result of others' generosity. There are sons, daughters, cousins, and more who have celebrated birthdays, graduations, weddings, and many more milestones because their loved one was given a second chance at life. Beyond the walls of our own building, I hear so many other examples of how donation transformed the world. Last August marked the 35th anniversary of our first ever liver donation and transplantation from Nebraska. The recipient, Lily Allen, is alive and well today. Just 1 year old at the time of her transplant, Lily and her donor's parents, Milt and Janet Bemis, have met and maintain a close relationship. Lily got married on the 24th anniversary of her transplant. And 3 years ago, her husband, Brian, donated a portion of his liver to a total stranger to honor the gift that gave Lily life so many years before. Among other members of our donation community, small towns have come together to host an annual 5K, scholarships have been awarded, food drives have been organized, support groups formed, and so much more, all inspired by someone's decision to give the gift of life. The individuals being honored today became donor heroes in 2018, 2019, and 2020. In that time, more than 1,300 people gave the gift of life here in Nebraska. Nearly 600 life-saving organs were transplanted. Over 1,000 organs and tissues were donated to benefit groundbreaking research projects, and thousands of tissue grafts provided healing to grateful recipients throughout the country. You and I will never fully realize how these gifts have and will continue to shape the world. And on days like today, I wish I had more than words to express my gratitude. But from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. You and your loved one have made the world a better place. Thank you again for joining us today. It has been our privilege to celebrate and honor our donor heroes with you. This video will remain online, and we invite you to share it with your friends and family. We wish you continued health and safety in the coming days and months ahead, and look forward to the time when we can meet with you again. In the meantime, if we can answer any questions, help you connect with recipients, or provide any support, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you, and take care.